All right there, everyone. In the midst of all of the Brexit bungling, a new survey is finding that populist sentiments are surging throughout Britain. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. But first, most warm welcome to all of our first-time viewers. I post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in light of some really awesome conservative trends. So if you would, please smack that bell and subscribe button. It'd be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of our online community. All right, so obviously the whole world is watching the Brexit bumbling at the hands of the Remainer, the rather devout Remainer, Theresa May. It's been pathetic, utterly and completely pathetic to say the least. The globalist political class was handed a resounding defeat in the form of the passing of the Brexit referendum back in 2016, and now in an almost surreal and bizarre-like kabuki theater, the very people who campaigned against Brexit are in charge with overseeing its successful implementation. And Prime Minister Theresa May has made it very clear, she's doing everything she can to thwart Brexit while giving the appearance that she's trying to implement it. Nobody's buying it. Nobody, not on the British left or the British right. No one is buying it. Everyone sees right through this, and it appears more and more likely that in the end a no-deal Brexit is the only possible outcome, since neither the EU nor the Remainers in charge of Brexit have any intention of actually implementing a post-Brexit world. So in the midst of all of this insanity, the missed deadline last week, the rest of it, it's no wonder that opinion polls are beginning to reflect an astonishingly low confidence among the British population in their government leaders and apparatus. A recent study conducted by the Hansard Society, which conducts studies on an annual basis to measure attitudes towards government among the British population. They've uncovered some pretty shocking discoveries from their 2019 survey of over 1,000 Brits. And what they found was a massive majority have completely lost confidence in their government. Nearly 75%, to be exact, believe that the British government needs a major overhaul, and that a number of Britons were perfectly comfortable with the whole notion of the study calls it an authoritarian figure. I think we would more generously call it a populist figure. A vast amount of Britons were perfectly comfortable with the whole notion of a kind of populist figure coming in and basically ripping the British government apart. 54% of respondents agreed that Britain needs a strong ruler willing to break the rules. 42% agreed with the idea that many national problems could be dealt with far more effectively if the government didn't have to worry so much about these clowns in Parliament. Only 25% had confidence in the MPs' handling of the Brexit. 56% said that Britain was in decline, and a whopping 63% agreed that Britain's system of government is rigged to advantage the rich and powerful. And nearly 50% of the public believed that they had absolutely no influence whatsoever on the political and cultural direction of their nation. Now, this study corresponds to the attitudes and feelings uncovered by a number of other studies that have been very helpfully compiled by the British political scholar Matthew Goodwin on the dynamics that led up to the successful Brexit campaign, which Goodwin believes in many respects, is really just getting started. In other words, what these studies suggest is that Brexit is just the latest event to evidence a groundswell of populist sentiment that has yet to reach its limits. Brexit may in fact just be the beginning of the unleashing of a groundswell of British populist sentiment. Here's what the evidence really shows. And this is all despite the constant dismissive slander against Brexiteers that we hear from the globalist corporatist media and the likes of David Cameron and Blair and the like. Despite all the stereotypes and pejoratives that you hear that Brexiteers were just a bunch of old white racist xenophobes, here's what the data really shows. Brexit was actually supported by a broad and diverse coalition of voters, among which were large numbers of affluent voters. It was not just working class. 1 in 3 black and ethnic minorities. Almost half of 25 to 49-year-olds. 1 in 2 women. 1 in 4 college graduates. And an astonishing 40% of voters in the greater London area. Brexit appealed to white pensioners in England's declining seaside towns, but it also won Majority support in highly ethnically diverse areas like Birmingham and Slough. And these people hardly made a rash decision influenced by all this supposed misinformation going on, Russian bots and the like. Britain's National Center for Social Research found that over 50% of Britain's population supported leaving the EU or at least radically altering it for the last 20 years. This was not an 11th hour decision. People have been unhappy with the EU long before the 2008 financial crisis, long before the 2015 immigration crisis. If anything, those were just straws that broke the proverbial camel's back. Brexit was decades in the making, which of course is a truth that's rather uncomfortable for liberal globalist ears to hear. Moreover, when asked how they thought of their identity as British or European, over the course of a number of surveys between 1992 and 2016, over 60% of Brits answered the question by saying they thought of themselves as British only. Only 6% thought of themselves as European. That's a consistent finding over a 14-year period. And of course, this stands in stark contrast to the way the BBC and other British media outlets try to portray the British public, that we're all Europeans. We all belong to a single European identity and standardization system. I saw it all the time in Durham when I was out there. And Matthew Goodwin notes that Britain's involvement in the European Union was always rooted in a rather pragmatic, economic interest. There's never really been a desire among Brits to go beyond a very helpful economic arrangement. Scholars even noted at the time, we're talking back when they joined in the 1970s, British support for joining the EU was wide, but it was never deep. And we see this consistently reflected in the polls. I noted between 1992 and 2015, an average of 52% of people Brits wanted to leave the EU, or at least radically reduce its powers. Did you catch that? Over the course of a 20-year period, a consistent average of 52% of Brits wanted to leave the EU. When Brexit passed, guess by what percentage it passed? It won 52% of the vote. Okay? When citizens expressed their deeply held concerns over all this, right? They all felt, and then we have the studies to show, they all felt that they were ignored, they were laughed at, they were slandered by these elites. When it came to their concerns over mass immigration and the massive spike, particularly under Tony Blair, they were accused of being, white supremacists, xenophobic, and racist. And so there's been this growing alienation between the populists and the ruling elite. And again, this is the evidence that's surrounding the Brexit vote. Researchers found that nearly 2 million Brits who had not voted in the 2015 general election because they basically gave up, they actually came out en masse to vote for the Brexit referendum. I mean, that's an astonishing number of disenfranchised who believed that Brexit was finally an opportunity for them to have their voice heard. All of this is to say that the fundamentals all pointed to the makings of a very successful Brexit referendum in 2016. And as the latest surveys are indicating, especially in the wake of the bumbling of Brexit by May and by the British Parliament and the MPs, these fundamentals appear to be reaching a boiling point. It does appear that we do have the makings of another mass British populist revolt, of which Brexit was but one shocking expression. But if these latest findings are any indicators, Brexit may just be the beginning. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to check out some of our really cool merchandise on the link below. We have some great, awesome, God Emperor Trump mugs and t-shirts that you're going to love, and you'll help support this channel as well. Please click on our Patreon, subscribe to our PayPal links below, become a monthly supporter of this channel, and help us to continue to analyze current events and light of awesome conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish. God bless.